Most people assume that travelling full time must be extremely expensive, but actually, if you slow travel, it can be cheaper than living in the UK, USA, or Australia. Welcome back to my series on Retire and Travel the World. And I am Zoe, and I did this. I sold up last year and sold everything. I sold my house, my car, all my belongings, and set off to travel the world. And yes, I had a bit of a change to my plans, which is why we need to be adaptable, because I got ill and I am currently back in the UK temporarily while I get treatment, but I will be back out there very soon. So when I decided to sell everything that I owned and go traveling the world, I obviously spoke to people about it. I spoke to my family and friends, but particularly when I was speaking to my family, the biggest question was, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to afford it? Now, my sons were quite concerned about this because obviously they don't want to end up with mother on their sofa. It requires some planning. You have to think about it. Now, everyone's situation is going to be different. I did some planning on it and I made myself spreadsheets for the next 30 to 40 years, put in all my income, sort of when my state pension would kick in, when my personal pension would kick in, how much I get from investments, and sort of plotted out how much money I would have each year and, how much I would have to spend to make sure I do not run out of money by the time I reach the end of my life. Now, we don't know when that will be, of course. So we overestimate, of course. But, that's something that you can do. Now, some people are going to have bigger budgets than other people. Mine's, it's around 2,000 a month. Now, £2,000 does not sound a lot, does it, for travelling? We all know how expensive holidays are, but bear with me here. So once I did my budget, this is what I knew I had. Now, I have a little bit extra in there, but I've kind of left that as an emergency fund, if I have medical bills or something comes up. But for my main living, 2,000 a month is my budget. Then I can start planning, is this possible? And I found that it actually is. So looking at the things that are expensive related to travel is long-haul flights, one of the biggest costs. So by slowing down travel, I can take one long-haul flight to a region and then stay in that region for a period of time. So I'm only taking local transport, like short hop budget flights or buses or trains, public transport. I don't need to be, because it would get expensive if I did a long-haul flight, like every couple of weeks or every month. That just wouldn't be doable. That would use most of my budget. But by only doing a few long-haul flights a year and the rest, well, one or two a year actually, and the rest just being local and sticking to a region, can really bring that cost down. The second one is accommodation. So I usually, and it does depend what country you're going to, but say I use Airbnb mainly. Now, if I'm staying somewhere for longer than 4 weeks, you get a discount. Now, sometimes it's a substantial discount. You can get up to 50%. Sometimes it's minor, but if you go on Airbnb and you search, you'll find those great deals. And that substantially brings down your costs. You can also look up, like on Google, and find service departments and get in contact with them directly and ask them, what's your rate for a month? You see, Google Maps is really good for that because you just open it up, you can find things on there, get in touch with them. I also use booking.com, but I tend to use that if I'm staying somewhere short term. Well, I have used Airbnb for short term as well, but in the main. And some countries, booking.com has better deals than Airbnb. But they're the two I mainly use. But there are others out there. I know like my American friends use Expedia a lot. I don't get the same discounts on Expedia that I do on Booking.com because I've been with them for donkey's years. But there are some options. But my point is, if you book something long term, there are many deals there to make it a lot cheaper than just staying for a week here and a week there and a week there and a week somewhere else. So you can bring your costs down quite a lot. Of course, I'm talking about slow travel. That's what I do. That's what they call it, slow travel. I'm not going somewhere for a week or 3 days and then moving on and on. I'm actually staying somewhere for at least a month at a time because I'm getting the discounts on the accommodation and I'm not paying for so many airfares. But the other thing you save on is if you stay somewhere long term, you're less likely, I mean, you may still do, it might be in your budget, but you're less likely to eat out all the time and go grocery shopping and cook for yourself and in your apartment. And that's certainly what I do. And I save a lot of money by doing that. Plus, I like to eat out and taste, the cuisine in other countries, but I do also like to cook for myself because it's a very bland diet, really. But I have, I like to cook my vegetables, and that's what I like to do. But it does save me a lot of money as well. And so, if you sort of think about it that way, and you know that you can't spend more than 2,000, you can probably find places that you can easily live within that budget. And so retiring to travel the world is very possible. Now, as we're over 50, one of the other big costs we are going to have to consider is health/travel insurance. It's not cheap when you get to your 50s and 60s. So it is a big cost. You're going to be paying 100, maybe more pounds a month for that. Now, there's plenty of travel companies, travel insurance companies out there, like you would have heard of Safety Wing, but there's others out there as well. But that's, it is a cost you have to factor in. And I do factor that in within my £2,000 budget. The older you get, the more expensive it gets. If you have pre-existing conditions, it's going to cost you even more. This is a cost I think people sometimes forget about when they initially get excited about going and traveling the world. You need to have this insurance to cover you for emergencies. Now, these insurances are probably not going to cover you for everything. So if you have a pre-existing condition or it's not in your policy, you're going to have to pay out of pocket for things. Now, it's not expensive in as expensive in some countries as it is to go private in the UK. But we're not used to paying for our healthcare in the UK. So that is a bit of a hit. And that's why I say I have like a safety budget that I keep aside. So 2,000 to spend a month, including the policy costs, but I have a little bit kept on the side so that when I have medical bills or something happens, I've got an emergency fund to dip into, because you can quickly wipe out your monthly budget. That is something you really need to think about as we're getting older. Doesn't mean it's not doable, it just means something to think about. And we'll talk more about that in a future episode, but it is a cost to consider. Now, everyone's number is going to be different. Just because you watch someone else on YouTube saying that they live somewhere for X amount of money doesn't mean that's going to be the same for you. You have to really think about how you live, what your lifestyle is, what you want to do. Do you like to eat out all the time? Do you stay in and cook all the time? Do you like to hire a car? Or are you happy taking public transport? Or do you want a taxi everywhere? These are the sort of things that can soon sort of change your numbers. Do you like cruising? Because cruising is going to cost you a little bit more. So it's going to be different for everybody. So don't just rely on the numbers that other people tell you to do. Don't rely on the numbers that I'm using. These are the numbers that work for me, but they might be different for you. You might live very differently to me. But there's so much information out there now, so you can check the cost of living in places, and you can watch different YouTube videos and get a good general idea. Go on Airbnb and have a look at what the accommodation costs are coming out of, because I do that all the time when I'm making my plans. Because sometimes, and especially seasonal, like, it's a lot cheaper to go off season in some of these places. I don't need to be there in the summer holidays when it's packed with kids and no, I don't. No one's got anything against kids, but I don't like that crowd. Don't like the crowds. It's not, so the summer holidays are always busy, but you can go off season because we're retired. And you'll get better deals doing that, which might help with your budget. But like I say, everybody is different, and it really is going to depend how you want to live. But do some research into it. But don't give up just because perhaps your original idea is just not affordable. Adapt it and see then if you can live and travel in a way that you can afford. That's what I had to do. I mean, I'd love to stay in 5-star hotels and be waited on hand and foot, but let's be realistic, I can't afford that. I would be broke in a month. So like I said at the beginning, put together your numbers, really work through what you can do. Now, I put it in an Excel sheet for the next 30, 40 years, all my expected income for that time. I also made a little bit of a formula to work out inflation and things like that, but to work out how much I had. And I did use my pension advisor to go through my Excel sheet, check my formulas, check my assumptions, just make sure they were kind of making sense. And I did ask my sons to sort of look at it, make sure it looked sensible, and that feasible. So don't be afraid to ask the people for help. And people are happy usually to help you. It's just a sanity check, really, that it's right. There's also software out there that you can get to plan your numbers if you're not great on Excel. So there's lots of options. But even if you just write it on a piece of paper or something, just give yourself an idea of what you've got coming in and what your budget might actually be. I recently put together a workbook because when I went through this process, I did all my financials, was a big part of it, but also, why was I doing this, and was I running away from something, or what was I looking for? And that my thought process I put into a workbook, and I'll put the description below, so it might be useful to some of you. So in summary, I think the 3 things that people get wrong in their planning is they assume that it must all be luxury travel. It doesn't have to be luxury travel. You can just live and travel. Not researching the places they're going to properly and the costs of living there. I mean, there's plenty of resources now on the internet and YouTube to get more of an idea of how much each country may cost you, or each place. And thirdly is assuming that our numbers are going to be the same as everyone else's. Like I say, our budgets are not going to be the same. Our cost of living is not going to be the same. I can tell you what I spend and how I live, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily going to be for you. So when you are watching other people, just make sure that you're mindful of how they live and how that would affect you. And also their age and demographic, because we're not going to live the same lifestyle as the 20-year-olds. I mean, we might. I think my days of partying are over. I'd much rather go to bed early nowadays. So instead of asking yourself, can I afford this? Ask yourself, what lifestyle do I want, and where and how can I afford it? Plenty of places out there where we can live a lot cheaper. So if you knew that you could afford it and you could change your life and live this lifestyle and travel the world full time, would you do it? Anyway, thanks for watching, and join me next Friday at 6 p.m. for the next episode in this series, Retire and Travel the World. Thanks for watching. See you all soon. Ciao.